I think you're amazing.
You are too, Henry.
Thank you so much. Well, Perry, you are awesome.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, and I appreciate you, what you're doing too, buddy.
Well, thank you. Because if you allow the world to define you, if you allow friends to define you, if you allow your spouse to define you, or anybody to define you outside of how God sees you, that does open the door to rejection. God bless you, and I hope y'all have an amazing day.
Thank you, Brother Henry.
Thank you.
God bless you too. Thank you for having us.
Cool water on a hot day.
Well, thank you for your refreshments.
Oh, I'm glad you like it. You're welcome, Officer Clemmons.
Shall we turn this off?
Mm-hmm. Is that enough?
Oh, that's fine. Well, that was so enjoyable. I'm sorry I couldn't stay longer.
Well, I know how busy you are. But sometimes just a minute like this will really make a difference.
There, that one's dry. And now, that one. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Who can put your hand in my hand and be ready to feel all safe and strong? You're a child, so you can do it. Children do it all life long. There we are.
Welcome to the Brother Henry and You Show. I am your host, Henry Harris. Today I am honored to have the one and only Dr. Francois Clemmons, better known as Officer Clemmons from Mr. Rogers' neighborhood television program. Francois made history as the first African-American actor to have a recurring role on a children's television program. Doesn't ask you to be his neighbor, but rather just to hear his story, one of a man of profound strength, talent, who stood up, sang out, and after great struggle, was heard. A new wide world opened for Clemmons, but one that also required him to make painful personal choices and sacrifices. Officer Clemmons details Clemmons' incredible life story, beginning with his early years in Alabama and Ohio, marked by family trauma and loss, through his studies as a music major at Oberlin College, where Clemmons began to investigate and embrace his homosexuality, to a chance encounter with Fred Rogers that changed the whole course of both men's lives, leading to a deep spiritual friendship, mentorship spanning nearly 40 years. Today, we are here to talk about his new book and memoir, Officer Clemmons. And Francois, thank you so much for being on the show today.
You're very welcome. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I look forward to our chat.
I got something I want to say to you before we get started. There are many ways to say I love you. I just had to say that. I love that song.
I've sung that song so much. I too love it. I'm very grateful that Fred wrote it. He wrote many songs that I sang, but that was probably one of the absolute most special. And you know, these things happen, and it has stayed with me since about 2012. I think 2012 or something like that, 2010. It's just been such a long, wonderful, wonderful time. I cannot complain. No, I'm sorry. 2012 was it? It would be 1992. 1992. And around that time that I ended my formal affiliation with the program. But I did come back for guest appearances, and I also traveled with Fred around America and made guest appearances with him. After I technically left the program, I still was involved. He still was my personal surrogate father, a wonderful, giving, loving man. And I was in regular contact with him until he died, which was a deeply, deeply sad thing for me.
Yeah. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, there are several reasons I wrote the book. One is the whole idea that we have to tell our own story, that no one else is going to tell it quite right. And I have read many books on Fred Rogers' life and his ministry and his story. And I worked with him for 27, 28 years, more than that. And all during that time, I never felt people did justice to the relationship of Black people in Black America with Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. It always came up what I consider lily white. Everything that he did that involved white people, but did not really talk about the total picture of who he was and what he was and what he did. And so that was one of the main reasons I said it's too white. We need diversity. We need honesty. And if we're going to have honesty, I have to tell my side of the story. That's the first thing. The second reason was I knew at a very young age that I was gay. I've always been gay. There is no, nobody planted any seeds or forced me or this or that. But what it did was make me ask a lot of questions about why and how do you express yourself in this life. Is there such thing as a Christian gay person? And what is it? What does it mean to be kind? All of these questions were going through my mind. So I sat down and I started writing about it because I felt that since I did not have a positive gay image of who I am or what I am, someone needed to write this so that a young boy who's 12, particularly a young Black boy in the ghetto, like me, who's 12, 13, 14, 15, wondering, why am I not like girls like my buddies do? Why am I not acting crazy or trying to get kisses or touchies?
Yeah.
All of those kinds of things that a young adolescent boy goes through. Well, I began to understand that I am gay. And over the many, many years, there are lots and lots of people who are gay. This is not a rarity, number one. And in my opinion, it's not something innately a sin, because that's what they were telling me all the time in the Baptist church where I grew up, fundamentalist Baptist church. So I read the Bible 8 or 9 times from cover to cover. I never saw where Jesus or the Christ or the beloved one said homosexuality is a sin. Never once. Once I realized that I too had read the Bible and I knew what it said, then I could stand up tall and say, I believe in this great spiritual life that one can have and share, and I can love like anybody else. And I learned that a lot from talking with Fred Rogers, and he introduced me to unconditional love. And I was very suspicious of him at first because there had been a number of people who had made advances towards me or tried to talk to me or get close, and I felt it was the wrong reason, so I stayed away from those people. So when I met Fred Rogers, I was suspicious at first, but as he continued to relate to me, to invite me to his program and, so to speak, into his life, I began to know something on a much deeper level. And that song you sang, there are many ways to say I love you. There are many ways. He wrote that for me because there are many ways to say I love Francois. I love who he is. I love his artistry. I love his spontaneity. There's so many things that I brought to the table that he explained to me. He loved me the way I was. That was so important for many reasons. And so in writing the book, I talk about the need for love. All of us have the need for love. And Fred Rogers says, be kind, be kind, be kind. So I've kind of had those as the centerpiece for my life. unconditional love and how important it is to try and be kind. We're not perfect.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, but I am saying that you have to work at it. You have to make a commitment to how you want to live your life. So in writing the book, I set up the idea of unconditional love and the need for being kind. I can tell you now that I have written a second book, which is, in my mind, is like a continuation of the memoir. But in this book, I'm able to talk more, deeper, on an adult level. I'm intending to have an adult conversation. This is not a conversation for the very young, which is what Fred Rogers did. Now he's done that. He's done it profoundly. I'm in another place where I'm dealing now with adults, and I'm talking about the problems that are going on in our society. And in my opinion, the deepest stem of it is racism. We have never gotten the pain, the poison of racism out of our system. And you can't get it out unless you're going to talk about it. And many, many white people who are the cause of most of it, not all of it, hear me clearly, but most of it, they have not been willing to deal with it because they see it as taking something away from them. Instead of, when I meditate and I pray, the universe, or God, whatever you want to call God, universe, helps me to understand that we are one. The entire spectrum of humanity on this globe is one. We are related. We are our blood. I mean, think of it. And whether you're Alaskan, Native American, Latin, Black, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, whatever it is, the blood is the same. Come on, people. If we were that different, then I couldn't have this one's blood and this one could not have mine. Inside, we are one. And when we understand that, you know, Henry, our lives here on earth are it's not an accident. There are many people who think, oh, there, you know, it's a random experience. It is not. It is an intentional experience from that which is unknowable, that which is beyond human comprehension. You know, I've been listening to some scientists talk about the atom or the single cell, like the amoeba, paramecium, those things. They are enormously complex. They're so, science has said, you go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. It's infinitesimally complex. Therefore, in my mind, in my heart, it helps me, not that I understand all that science and stuff, but too many things fit. Too many things are beyond accidents. And when you sit, as I do, and you think, and you pray, and you meditate, and you open yourself up to whatever it is, that which is communicates with you. You could say it talks to you if you want to say that. But it tells us, the trees, the fish, the dogs, oh, Lord have mercy, the little dogs, the little cats, we're one. They're us. The monkeys, the chimpanzees, the gorillas, everything you can go down the list and think of, cows. We communicate. And when we communicate, something magical happens. And because we can't put our finger on it, nail and say, oh, that's what happened, there are those who say it's not real. Oh, but it is. It is. Because over and over and over, it shows itself in your life. Now, I'll just say this and I'll shut up. When you decide to communicate, or you understand that essence, things begin to happen in your life that are inexplicable. You cannot explain them. In my way of thinking and understanding the universe, that is how God talks to us. That's how we pray, if you want. We sit, we say, oh, Father, Mother, because God is not male or female. O essence, O being, O first cause, life. Here I am, humbly. What is it that you would have me to do? And I'm anointed to give this message. In other words, the universe has made it clear to me that this is what I'm supposed to say, because there are lots and lots of people who say, oh, the trans are not this. Oh, the gays are not that. Oh, the bisexuals, all that dumb stuff. I'll say it that way. That is not what spirit is about. It's about what's inside, in you. And when you call on that, and it answers you by these, what we might call coincidences. And what I discovered there were too many coincidences. There were so many that I was left and right. This was happening. That was happening. Oh, yes. Yes. This is it. I don't mean like I have found the only answer, but I have found one for me. And that answer has to do with all of creation. Everything out there is beautiful, and it's a part of us. We are a part of it. Well, so that's the second book that I'm working on, an adult conversation that helps people to really understand we are one. And the last part of this, I'd like to make sure that people understand. Fred Rogers was my surrogate father, mentor. But you must understand that the mentee has become a man unto himself. Mm-hmm. And there are things which I understand as a Black gay man that Fred Rogers did not understand and could not translate it or communicate it the way I can. For example, he taught me about unconditional love. In order to truly accept unconditional love, you must have unconditional trust. Then when you have unconditional trust, you need unconditional truth. Love, trust, truth, and then you have a deep desire to be forgiven. We need unconditional forgiveness. Why? Because one brother, Cain, killed Abel. One brother hurt, killed the other. And the one who has done the murder, the killing, must say, I'm sorry. When a white man or the white people say, we're sorry, the Black person can say, in time, we will totally forgive you. But you must make a promise. And this is where we run into this roadblock, that you will never do it again. Because we have these wars, these incredible conflicts all over the globe for one ridiculous reason after the other. We don't own the land. Well, how many trees have I created? How much water have I created? This idea of ownership of nature is profoundly ridiculous. Because what I have understood looking around and talking to people, there is abundance in this world. Oh, Lord have mercy. That which is so generous. Everything that you could need, that which is gives to you. And it satisfies you. Not necessarily things, but whatever it is you may need. Count on the Spirit. Count, because it does not let you down. And it doesn't lie. It doesn't do it one way this time and another way that time. Unconditional love means unconditional love all the time. Unconditional trust means unconditional trust all the time. So we must forgive. And then in order to be reconciled, we must say, I'm sorry, and I will never do it again.
That's amazing. You're known as Officer Clemmons on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. How did that come into being?
Well, it wasn't me. I didn't have the luxury. Fred Rogers wanted me.
I do remember you saying that back then. Not that it's not happening. I think a lot of it is happening today with police brutality. You said police really didn't have this positive image, so to speak.
No.
So that was a problem.
Fred wanted me to be a helper. And that was what he stressed, that in the neighborhood of make-believe, when they needed a solution or were working on a problem, they could call on Officer Clemmons to assist. I wasn't the only one. You had Lady Oberlin, or you had Handyman Negri, or whomever would come and be a part of that solution. And it was important to have a Black person. But Fred also understood the incredible angst, that's the word, of Black people who were trying to get into the skin of a white policeman. And for me as a boy, it was a betrayal. But what I began to understand is that betrayal made me analyze, made me think about Officer Clemmons, think about the negativity, and to humanize the policemen. The policemen were dehumanizing us in the ghetto, but we were also dehumanizing them. So through this role of Officer Clemmons, I began to understand that, you can spend the rest of your life putting the blame in a righteous way on the people to where it belongs. It's the next step to say to them, I know what you've done. I understand what you've done. A lot of what you have done is out of fear. You don't have to fear me because we are one. What you want in life, I want in life. And these are not Black or white or gay or straight or anything. These are human needs, human values. So as I analyzed Officer Clemmons, he became much more than just, for example, I never had a gun. I never had a billy club. I didn't even have a whistle to blow for help. So it was about music and about art and about being receptive to the universe. And so I did a lot of thinking as Officer Clemmons. People loved me in that uniform. But to be honest with you, a lot of times it was like I wasn't there. Because I was not hostile. I was not aggressive. I was not going to pull some judo on the kid to solve a problem. And Fred helped me to think about the fact that we have to look to nonviolent solutions to whatever negative is going on. Dr. King called it nonviolent civil disobedience. And I ascribe to that. I sign to that. I read a lot about Mr. Rogers, but the Dalai Lama, I read about him, and I've read about Buddha. All of these great, great teachers, Mandela, Dr. King, they go on and on. And what do they say? Peace, that we must love one another. We must get rid of this stain of hatred and pain and death, because we cannot heal our relationships on earth through wars. It hasn't solved a thing.
So when you first initially met Mr. Rogers, what was your first impressions?
Well, my first impression, quite frankly, was
because you said you were raised in the ghetto and and things like that. So I'm pretty sure it was like out of the norm for you.
Initially, it was out of the norm because not that it happened, but that it consistently continued to happen.
Yeah.
Because in the ghetto, I met people who loved music, loved jazz, loved blues, loved gospel. And they were the ones who told me what great music this was. These Mary Lou Williams and Ronald, I can't think of the name right now, but the various people that I knew, they told me, you guys, Black people, have created some great music. And I said, what? I was always feeling oppressed about that you had to excuse loving the blues, or that Sam Cooke was somehow or another second to on Elvis Presley. Mm-hmm. And these people were telling me, you guys are the original. You have created it. So you are the ones who created with Duke Ellington and with Louis Armstrong and Jelly Roll Morton. Black people did this, not white people. And if you guys own up to and understand the great creativity in the Black community, oh, Lord have mercy, you would go through the roof. So I began to learn in the ghetto that there were white people who knew this, and they were interested in teaching the truth. and I was interested in learning. So after a while, I too began to open my eyes to the incredible gift of music and art and performing that Black people have contributed to American culture, because I was not taught this in school. No school ever told me how great Duke Ellington was or Louis Armstrong. I learned it on the street. I learned it from talking to people from New Orleans, from Alabama, from Mississippi, and probably from Missouri too. All right, well, I'll just simply say we have to come together. And that was what helped Fred Rogers really helped me to learn that we're not in this alone, and we cannot solve the problems alone. We must come to the same table. But when we come to the same table, white people are not better. They're just different. They've had a different experience. Black people are not necessarily better, but what they bring to that table must have the same value as what the white people bring to the table. And it's not always something physical. It's spiritual sometimes. In fact, a lot of the times, it's spiritual, that we, as a race, as a mentality, we bring to the table a level of divine spirituality. And so you don't just add up things. You can't talk about oil or coal or the water as though it's mine. I have this much land. I have all the, the cattle ranches and stuff. No, that's not going to solve our problems, and it's not going to make anybody happy.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to your grave, I often think about that. When you go to your grave, you leave all of that behind. Not a single iota or tinge of it goes anywhere else. I had the sad experience on December 2nd. My little dog, Princess, died. She's 15 years old, and she would have been 16 a couple days ago on the 13th of January. And my little baby, she had cancer, and I took her to the vet, and he explained all the delicate and the sensitivity things. And it was very painful, but I held her when he gave her the shot that allowed her to be released. She was in a lot of discomfort and pain in her chest. She couldn't breathe. And I held her, and I loved her. I let her know how much I loved her. She transitioned. And so after a couple hours, they took the body, and I was able to come home. I swear to you, I felt like she came home with me. I didn't just leave her in the vet's office. And I thought, oh my goodness. But it was, what is this? It's the non-physical side of life that they don't talk to you about in school, but it is real. Hear me. It's real. My baby came home with me. She said, no, I'm still with you, Daddy. And so it took me a while to fully accept that nothing really goes away. When I write in this room, I call it my cave. I think about Fred Rogers. I think about my mother, my great-grandmother, Laura May. I think about my ancestors, and they all come together in the effort of understanding who I am, what I need to say, what I have to say. And the book that I'm writing makes a lot of sense when I just sit right here in this room and keep quiet.
My last question is, when people read your book, briefly, what would you like to see them walk away with when they read this book, Officer Clemmons?
Well, there are several things, quite honestly. One of them is that to understand the unity of humanity, that we really are one. You cannot separate Black from white, from Asian, from Latin. We are one. The second thing is to have a curiosity about reading the next book. Well, what else is he going to say? Because I feel this book only scratches the surface of who I am and what I was trying to do. There are many things that are more specific in the second book that I feel I can talk about now, because we're having an adult conversation. We're no longer thinking about all the 12, 11, 10-year-old kids who are going to pick up the book and read. That's okay. I want that. Lots of it. Go out and buy some more. But we do have to understand that there's another level of this discussion, and we are ready. We're ready for that next level.
We are ready for that next level. And Officer, I said Officer Clemmons.
That's okay.
Officer Clemmons, I want to let you know that you are a huge part of my childhood. And I want you to know that I'm inspired by you and your story. And I'm just really grateful for your existence and being in my life. And I just want to encourage everyone that's watching. You can order Officer Clemmons wherever books are sold, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, wherever books are sold. Get the book. I believe it will really inspire you. I think we got 4 minutes. We got enough time to throw in one more question. You lived during a time of racism, homophobia, bigotry. I love the iconic photo of your book cover where you and Mr. Rogers are in the pool together. Many may look at that, but may not know the full story or message behind that. Would you mind sharing about that and also how you were able to overcome those adversaries? And we have.
Well, no, first of all, I have to tell you, we have not overcome. Some of us have developed better methods for dealing with it. But I think it has been shown to us by some of the political things going on that we still have horrible racism. We have persecution, against Jews, against Chinese, Japanese, Filipinos. There's incredible racism.
Mm-hmm.
So we have not gotten better about. But what I do understand is there's a dialogue, which is what I'm talking about. We have opened those history books on the truth, with Dr. King's birthday and celebration having been so recent, that going back and reading the true story of Dr. King and why we needed a program from the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, NAACP, SNCC, there are a number of organizations that had come up to address the racial problem in this country. We have not solved a thing.
Yeah.
And we won't solve it until white people say, oh, put on the brakes. We've been going in the wrong direction. We've been doing the wrong thing. Let's look and do in another direction. Let's try something else.
Yeah, I want you to know that I appreciate you, and I want to thank you for your time being on the show today.
Mm-hmm.
You are simply amazing, and you look nice, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate the compliment.
You are more handsome than ever.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm certainly going to stay in touch with you.
Well, sure.
Well, Perry, you are awesome.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, and I appreciate what you're doing too, buddy.
Well, thank you. Because if you allow the world to define you, if you allow friends to define you, if you allow your spouse to define you, or anybody to define you outside of how God sees you, that does open the door to rejection. God bless you. I hope y'all have an amazing day.
Thank you, Brother Henry.
Thank you.
God bless you too. Thank you for having me.